She said it like she was explaining the weather, not confessing to breaking something that couldn't be repaired. You work too much, Carter. That's why I cheated. It's your fault. And the part that unsettled her most wasn't my silence. It was when I nodded and said, "You're right." The room in our Greenwich, Connecticut home felt too quiet for something that loud. Lila Harrington stood across from me, arms folded, waiting for a reaction she could defend herself against. Anger would have made her comfortable. Denial would have given her something to argue with. But agreement? Agreement made her hesitate, because now there was no fight to hide inside. Only the truth sitting between us like something heavy and unmovable. I loosened my tie slowly, not because I was calm, but because I needed something to do with my hands. You worked late every night, she continued, her voice gaining strength again. You stopped showing up, you stopped noticing me. I nodded again, this time slower. I did work late, I said, and I did stop noticing some things. Her expression softened slightly, like she had just won something. But she didn't understand what I meant, because I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about the way I had ignored the signs, the quiet dinners, the way her phone tilted away from me at night, the way conversations turned into logistics instead of connection. I walked past her and set my briefcase on the marble counter. "Do you love him?" I asked without looking at her. There was a pause. That pause told me everything. "I don't know," she said. And that was worse than yes, because uncertainty meant she hadn't even decided what she was risking, only that she was willing to risk it. I leaned against the counter, finally turning to face her. "You're right," I repeated. "I work too much." She waited. "But that doesn't make what you did my fault." Her jaw tightened. The shift was subtle, but it was there. The conversation was no longer moving where she expected. "You weren't there, Carter," she said. "And instead of talking to me, you chose someone else," I replied. Her eyes flickered, because now we were finally talking about choices. And choices are harder to defend than feelings. Silence stretched between us again. Not the kind that cools things down. The kind that forces both people to sit inside their own decisions. I walked toward the window overlooking the quiet street, the same street we had moved to because she said it felt peaceful. "You know what the problem is?" I said. She didn't answer. "You needed attention." "That's not fair," she snapped. "And I needed stability," I continued. "And we both made choices to get those things." She shook her head. "No, Carter, that's not the same." "You're right," I said again. "It's not." I turned back toward her, this time holding her gaze. I chose to work more because I thought it was building something for us. And I chose to cheat because I wanted something for myself. The difference sat between us, undeniable. She looked away first. "Before we go further, tell me something honestly. If you were in Carter's position, would you still be trying to understand? Or would you have walked out already?" Because that's the moment I was standing in. The exact line between staying and leaving. And strangely, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was clear. Clarity is colder than anger. "I'm not going to yell," I said quietly. She looked back at me, confused. "I'm not going to throw things or make this dramatic." "Then what are you going to do?" she asked. I took a breath. "I'm going to stop pretending this is something it isn't." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means this didn't happen because I worked late. It happened because you allowed it to." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Because deep down, she knew that was true. "And now," I continued, "we have to decide what happens next." The weight of that sentence changed the room. This wasn't about the past anymore. This was about consequences. "I made a mistake," she said softly. And there it was. The word people use when they want something small to cover something big. I nodded slowly. "You made a decision," I corrected. Her shoulders dropped slightly. "Because mistake can be forgiven, but decision has to be owned." "I don't want to lose you," she said. That sentence came too quickly, too polished, like it had been prepared in advance. I studied her face, not looking for emotion, looking for alignment between her words and her reality. "Then why did you risk me?" I asked. Silence again, this time heavier, because there was no answer that wouldn't expose something uncomfortable. "I didn't think you'd find out," she admitted finally. And there it was. Not regret for what she did. Regret for being caught. That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not even sadness. Understanding. Clear, precise understanding. "I believe you," I said. Her eyes widened slightly, because that wasn't the response she expected. I believe you didn't think I'd find out, and I believe you didn't think about what this would cost. I picked up my keys from the counter. But now we both know. She took a step toward me. Where are you going? I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to say it clearly. I'm going to give you exactly what you said you needed. She frowned. What does that mean? Space, I said. Real space. Not the kind where two people stay in the same house, pretending things are fine. The kind where reality has room to settle in. You're just leaving? She asked, her voice tightening. I'm not running, I replied. I'm stepping back. That's the same thing, she said. No, I said calmly. Running avoids consequences. Stepping back allows them to exist. She shook her head, frustration building. So that's it. That depends, I said. On what? On whether you understand what you actually did. She stared at me, because for the first time, she realized this wasn't about me forgiving her. It was about her understanding herself. And that's much harder. I walked toward the door, then stopped one last time. Lila. She looked up. You were right about one thing. Her expression softened slightly. I didn't work too much. I opened the door, but not enough to deserve being replaced. And then I left. The cold air outside felt sharper than usual, not because of the weather, because of the clarity I was carrying with me. The next few days weren't dramatic. No shouting matches, no emotional texts, just silence, intentional silence. She texted me the second night. Can we talk? I didn't reply immediately, not to punish her, but because I was thinking about patterns, about what I had ignored, about what I had accepted without questioning. I replied the next morning. We will. Short, neutral, clear, because now every word mattered. When we finally met again, it wasn't at home. It was at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Neutral ground. No shared walls. No shared memories pressing into the conversation. She looked different, not physically, but in the way she held herself. Less certain, less composed. I've been thinking, she said as I sat down. I have too, I replied. She looked at me carefully. Are we over? Direct. Finally. I appreciated that. I don't know, I said honestly. Her eyes searched my face. What does that mean? It means this isn't about one conversation. It's about whether what broke can actually be rebuilt. She nodded slowly. And can it? I leaned back slightly. That depends on whether you understand the difference between being sorry and being accountable. She swallowed. Edo. I held her gaze. Then explain it to me. The silence that followed was longer than any before, because now there was no script, no defense, only truth, and truth takes time. Before we continue, what would you say in her position right now? Would you try to fix it, or would you admit it's already gone too far? Because this is where most relationships either rebuild or quietly end. She finally spoke. I was lonely, she said, but instead of telling you, I found an easier way to feel something different. I didn't interrupt. I didn't think about what it would do to us, she continued. I only thought about how it made me feel in the moment. There it was. Not perfect, but honest. And honesty is where real consequences begin. I nodded slowly. That's the first real thing you've said since this started. Her eyes filled slightly, but she didn't cry. Because this wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about clarity. And clarity doesn't need tears to be real. I don't know if we can fix this, I said, but I know we can't ignore it. She nodded. I understand. And for the first time since that night, I believed her. Not because she was asking to stay, but because she was finally facing what she had done. And sometimes, that's the only place anything real can begin again.